In this episode, we are going to see another example of improving pieces. And I have already mentioned that improving pieces is a very powerful weapon to use when the position is closed. The two important principles which we have to use more often in closed positions are prophylaxis and improving pieces. And in the position which you are going to see, it's going to be slightly difficult to find the right plan. Okay, Arvind and Karthi, we have a very interesting position in front of us. Karthi, can you explain what do you see in this position? What are the important features for both white and black?
Okay, in this position, I see that the c2 bishop is not doing great here because the h7 b1 diagonal is blocked by the f5 pawn, which is supported by the g6 pawn. So I think c2 bishop is not doing great, and also the b1 rook because it is tied by the a4 knight. So it has to be moved from there, and it has to be released because it is a major piece there. So if it can come to some better square and defend it, it will be great. And the b3 knight is threatening to come to d4, which is defended by the c6 knight. So both knights cannot move. Okay, white can move the b3 knight, but black cannot move the c6 knight because if white knight comes to d4, it will be a very big threat to the king side because the f5 pawns. It's like some sacrifice can come there.
Okay, fine. So if knight c6 moves, he will get knight d4. You're saying. Okay, fine.
Oh, subsequently, if you move the b3 knight, let's say knight c1, you will also move the d8 as c6 knight suit somewhere like d8, and if we play c6, it will be hard for us to break in that position.
Okay, so what you're saying is if the knight b3 moves, let's say knight c1, then he can play knight d8 followed by c6, and after that the d5 pawn will become safe, and maybe the queen can go back to f7, knight e6 can come, something like this. Okay, fine. So what about you, Arvind?
White has double bishop advantage.
Okay.
And I feel d5 pawn is somewhat weak here. And also he told that knight c6 is protecting the d4 square, and which is a bad piece for black.
Basically the point you are trying to say is the d5 pawn is weak, and if it has to be defended, then we need c6. But the c6 square is needed by both knight and the pawn. So if you have the pawn, there are some other problems like knight d4, and if you have the knight, then the d5 pawn becomes weak. Okay, so this is a problem which black has. That's what you guys are saying. Okay, so the way I read the position, one, we have the protected pass pawn, e5, f4. We have doubled pawn on f5, f2, f4, but it cannot be exploited in the middle game. And this pass pawn can be an important advantage. And queen is blocking the pass pawn, which is not a good idea generally. And as we can see, like if knight d8, then knight d4 kind of things will come with tempo. Now, as Karthi rightly mentioned, the two bad pieces for white are the rook on b1 and the bishop on c2. Now, once we identify the bad pieces in our position, then we have to see how we can improve them. Now, obviously, we can reject moving the rook from b1 because we will lose the b2 pawn. So, we have to see what else we can do. So, then we have to find some good way to improve the pieces. So, Arvind, do you have any plan by which you can improve the bishop and the rook?
Yeah, by using scanning technique, I thought both rook d2 and bishop d3.
Rook d2 and bishop d3.
Yeah,
okay.
If rook d2 with the idea of rook b d1, but it's not working because the b2 pawn is hanging.
Okay.
So if white wants to play rook b d1, he has to move his bishop to d3.
Okay.
So it's better to play first bishop d3. So he have choices whether to play rook d2 or some other ideas.
Okay, fine. So what Arvind said is basically using the scanning technique, he found two moves, rook d2 and bishop d3. So Arvind, what is the idea of bishop d3?
It's basically to play bishop f1 and bg2.
Okay, so Arvind has one idea, bishop d3, bishop f1, bishop g2, and he already mentioned that the pawn on d5 is weak. And to play c6, if he moves the knight, we already know knight d4 can create some problems. Okay, so bd3, bf1, bg2. Now this is a maneuvering, and we should do such maneuvering only when we have time, and only when our opponent cannot open the position, because we will be wasting 3 moves with the bishop, and then in that 3 moves, if we can open up the position, then we'll be stuck with some problems. So the other thing he mentioned is we can also play rook d2, idea rook d1, but if you do that directly with the bishop on c2, knight b2 will be hanging. So one option is play rook d2 and then move the bishop, probably bd3, bf1, bg2, and then bring the other rook to d1. So if we can get all that, for example, rook d1, d2 with the bishop on g2, we would have solved both the problems. Okay, Karthi, do you have any other plan than what Arvind said? Or is that you also agree with the same?
Okay, basically I also agree with the same plan because it looks good.
It looks like there are no other good plans.
Okay, I don't see other plans.
Okay, so there is another interesting plan. Arvind started with the first move, that is rook d2. Now can you find any other plan related to rook d2?
I think I got it.
Okay,
Maybe rook d2, queen g2 and bishop d1, bishop f3 there.
very good. So you can also play rook d2, queen g2, bishop d1, bishop f3. So basically you have an option here. You can have the queen f3, bishop g2 or bishop f3, queen g2. And in both the cases, you are likely to get rook d2, rook d1. Okay, so it's basically how you want to position the pieces. Okay, so this is a game played between Judith Polgar versus Hubner, and Judith played bd3 here. So you see, like in closed positions, when you cannot use calculation technique to find moves, then we have to use these two other very useful techniques, that is prophylaxis and piece improvement. The prophylaxis, black doesn't have any great ideas here. Okay, so anything, I mean, he doesn't have any plan which white needs to be worried about. So we don't have to use prophylaxis. Then immediately we go for piece improvement. We have to ask ourselves which is the worst piece in our position and find a good way to improve it. So bd3, and now he played bishop h4. Now my question, for bd3, can black play knight d8? Can we use the drawback principle now?
Okay, drawback is knight d4 here.
Knight d4, queen f7, and drawback? Very good, knight to b5. Now what is the drawback of queen f7? The rook on d7 becomes unprotected. Okay, so we can take knight b5, a b5, bishop b5, and then the rook on d7 and knight a4, there will be double attack. Okay, so he cannot play knight d8. So in the game, he played bishop h4. What is the point of bishop h4? What's he trying to achieve? Normally, I have a tip for you, which is whenever your opponent makes a move in the first or second rank piece, you also have to consider it as square clearance. Okay, so for example, if I have bishop e7 and rook f8, I play rook e8. It's like I'm clearing the f8 square for the bishop. Okay, something like that. So any first or second rank a piece is moved, one way to look at it is a square clearance. They are vacating the square for some other piece. So probably if they feel, if the pressure on d5 gets too much with bishop f1, bishop g2, then probably he wants to play knight e7 and defend the pawn. Okay, that could be one of the reasons. Okay, bishop f1, and then black played rook d8, not rook fd8. The point is he wants to play knight e7 for bishop g2, but then he sees that after knight d4, queen f7, e6, and he will lose the rook for fork with the pawn. So he is moving the rook away. Bishop g2, knight e7, and the drawback of knight e7, knight d4, queen f7. Now white has a very powerful move here. Can you find it? Also, you can also use prophylaxis. He wants to play c5. Yes, Arvind?
Queen e2.
Very good. Queen e2.
Bishop is basically stuck on h4.
Yeah, the drawback of knight e7 is it has taken away the square of the bishop. Now the bishop has no good way to go back. And one way to find it is you can realize that he wants to play c5. You need to find a good square for the knight, and then you say combining both. So after queen e2, white is simply winning. The position does not look like winning, but there is no good defense for knight f3. And if I play knight c8 to vacate that square, then we can use the drawback principle. Knight c6, rook d7, again the drawback principle, knight b8, rook d8, knight to a6. Okay, so we can simply do some magic with the knight and win a pawn. I think that was a good example, and very happy to note that you found the idea bd3, bf1, bg2.